Okay, so Sushil, thank you again for joining us. I know last time we spoke, you said that the information was current as of Wednesday at 12:22, and I think as soon as we hung up, a bunch of things changed. So I wanted to have you back and go over some of the changes that have happened and the processes, a couple different loan programs and things like that. So let's hop into it. I'm going to do similar format like we did last time. I will let you take over and we'll interject some questions as needed, and you just tell me when I gotta click the next slide.
Perfect. Good morning. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it, Rhoda. The biggest change so far to our economic injury disaster loan is that under $200,000, personal guarantees are no longer required. And anything over $200,000, there is a requirement for a personal guarantee. That's a new change. Those are the changes that we briefly talked about. The $100 UCC1 filing fee. That is a new one. Before, there was no fees per se, but now there's a filing fee for $100 that wasn't there before. I want to cover the high-level changes at first and then get back into the program. Next slide, please.
Perfect. Okay.
That's the other change. Now, when folks go to the website, they'll find an application which much is more streamlined. And if you want to go to that page real quick, the one after that, that's it right there. That's the website right up top. And if you would go back one slide, there you go. So COVID-19 relief.sba.gov is our website. When you tap that in, what you see is, if you go to the next page, Rhoda, that's what you see. Very streamlined, pretty straightforward, and answer the questions posed for the business operations, owner information, any additional stuff, and I'll share that with you also momentarily. Hit submit. Before you hit submit, it'll ask for whether or not you want to be included as part of a $10,000 advance against a loan that will be potentially approved. You'll be asked if you want to be considered for an advance of $10,000. No requirement to repay it if you're denied for the disaster loan. So in other words, you apply for the loan, answer the questions that the website asks for, and let's say you're approved for $100,000. They'll take the $10,000 out because you've already been advanced that sums of money, and the new loan amount will be for $90,000. Now let's presuppose that the opposite is true, which is that you were denied for the loan. There's no expectation for the applicant to repay those sums of money. If someone has already submitted an application last week and they were not considered for the advance, you have to reapply to get those sums of money. What documents are required? Nothing. As streamlined as it possibly can. So those are the high-level changes that have taken place since the last time we talked. And I thought it was important that you were aware and your listeners were aware of what's going on. So I appreciate you having me on board. I'm ready for questions that you might have any.
Okay, so sticking with this 10,000 first, yesterday I was on a training with the SBDC and SBA, and they said if you had applied before March 31st, you needed to reapply. Everyone needs to reapply. Can you confirm that? So if you applied April 1st, you're good. March 31st or before, please reapply so that you can be eligible for this $10,000.
I don't know about the date per se. I do know that this was rolled out as of Monday morning. So Monday was the 30th. So this is when we were first advised of it. So my suggestion, anybody that this week has applied for it should be good to go. And again, I'm making that assumption because we saw it on Monday. I've been doing these webinars nationwide. And as of Monday morning, Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, they were all aware of this. So for our audience here closer to home in California, they would have had that same website too. So I'll disagree with the date and I'll say it was Monday morning, which is the 30th.
Okay. All right. And then no documents are required for this initial 10,000. And if I understand, we've got some different phases here, steps. This is going to be step one, no documents required, because the urgency is really getting the $10,000 out to business owners. Once they do that, you'll be required to submit the documents that we had discussed earlier, the tax returns and the liabilities and the amount of money that you need for covering operating costs. Is that fair to say? That'll be step 2?
That has completely been changed. So let's
Okay.
go back to the website. So back to your question, there are no forms, none, okay? You just answer the question that's posed. So go to the previous slide, Rhoda, just hit your previous button. This is what you see in its entirety, okay? So on the very first page, you're being asked to attest to one of those radio buttons. So if you could enlarge that, if you could. So basically, I was able to enlarge it on my screen to 150%. So if you are one of those entities, you're a business with no
Much
more than
better
500
than
employees. There you go. Go down a little bit so everyone can see the rest of the screen. I would like for the rest of them to see there's a total of 8 radio buttons that you have to choose from. So
Yeah, we
let's
can see
phrase
that.
it correctly, right? You were asking what documents are required, and my answer was none. So basically what you need to do now is to answer the certification questions on page 1, which is what type of business are you? Whether you have more than 500, less than 500. If you're an ESOP, if you're a sole prop, if you're an independent contractor, if you're agriculture cooperative, aquaculture, tribal concern, or nonprofit. The very last button is nonprofit. You certify that you're not involved in anything illegal that disqualifies you from applying for the loan. And once you certify, you go to the next screen, if you don't mind. That's where you start. You start putting in your business legal name, your trade name. It's pretty straightforward. There is no documentation, just it's a Q&A. And you answer the question as it's asked right up front. No documentation required. If there, I believe I've attached another screen for your for edification, please. And if you want to zoom that up, I mean, it's pretty straightforward in terms of Q&A. There is no spot for anyone to add any documentation. So basically, it's that straightforward. There's nothing more to be added. No attachments, no tax returns, no schedule of liabilities, no personal financial statement. Answer the question that was posed, and within 3 to 5 business days, the advance is put into your account. End of story.
Okay, so that's, I guess, then how for the 10,000, and then to get reviewed for if someone needs 250,000 for the next 6 months, they're going to have to submit tax returns and documentation after they speak to a loan officer?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. This is it. This is the entire application process for the entire process for the 6 months worth of working capital that's being funded. There is no documentation requirement.
Precisely on that point, okay, that deposit for the 10,000 up to 10,000, is it 10,000? That's the first question. Is it 10,000 for everybody or up to 10,000?
Up to $10,000, sir.
Deposit made directly from your locally approved SBA bank, or your bank that happens to be an SBA bank?
No, sir, it comes from the Treasury. This has nothing to do with your local bank. Yeah, that comes specifically with the economic injury disaster loan. And those funds are coming from the Treasury. It has nothing to do with any bank involvement other than that's your depository institution that you bank with where the money is deposited.
Hi, this is Milo. I had a question to make sure I was hearing this right. For the up to 200,000, when there is no personal guarantee, did I hear you say that there's no documents required?
There's no documents required for the economic injury disaster loan, period. What you saw in the slide was those 5 pages. It's a Q&A piece. Answer those questions, hit submit, and your application has been submitted. That's it.
And then I want to go over, if we can, then the information you have on the PPP loan.
There you go. So if you want to read it, because I have no talking points from the SBA, this is from the Treasury to the community lenders, banks locally. And this comes out of the district office. They are the ones that do the 7A loans. This is specifically for 100%. This is a 7A loan. Instead of a 75% guarantee, it's a 100% guarantee. Feel free to go through it. And where can I apply? So there's your answer.
Okay, and from what I understand, the PPP is how they're calculating that is they're taking your payroll. You're going to have to submit 12 months of payroll information. they'll figure out your average monthly payroll, multiply that times 2.5, and that's really going to be your loan amount. They may include utilities or interest on mortgage or your rent costs and that's for 2 months. And the EIDL loan is maybe more long-term for 6 months. Is that fair?
The working capital that is funded for eligible businesses is for 6 months. It is for long-term. Payback is 30 years. Interest rate is fixed. And if you go down further, I believe there is an application.
That's for the EIDL for
with this,
30 years.
The EIDL program, correct.
And the PPP is short-term, 0.5% for 2 years?
For the, go down and you'll see the actual term. Keep going down.
Yeah.
There you go.
2 years. Okay.
And this came from the Chamber of Commerce. This is the talking points between the Treasury and the SBA that I'm waiting for. I'm not authorized to speak about this program because it's not been approved yet, but this came from the United States Chamber of Commerce website.
Okay. But people should be applying for both, correct? You don't want to apply for just one or the other. Apply for both, but you cannot use the funds for both loans for the same cost. So you can't use PPP loans and EIDL loans to both cover your rent.
Correct. And the other part is PPP is not available yet.
Okay. Okay. So still get people though. You can work with your banker or work with someone to help you as you work on that, getting it to a banker, because they will be able to help you in. Do we have any idea of the timeline for funding on this one?
I don't. I really don't.
I want to go.
Would you like me to send you what the application looks like?
So I think I've got that. This Paycheck Protection Program. It looks like this. Again, if you need this and you're having problems,
that's the one. That's exactly.
We've got a folder set up, so it's in the EIDL loans folder that everyone should have access to now. If you don't, you can email EIDL@financeagents.com, and you'll get replied to automatically with a link to download all of these forms that are associated with disaster relief. So here's the loan application. You want to go through that for a second, Sushil?
Which one? This one right here?
Yeah, the payroll protection program that I've got.
See, as I mentioned, this is not approved talking points yet, so I'm a little hesitant to speak about it. I would have no issue with you going through it because of your expertise. And then when I'm authorized to speak about it, I'd be glad to do so.
Okay, so maybe we can go through
only because yes, ma'am, absolutely. I'll be glad to assist with the understanding. So basically, it's a one-page application, certification, and then after that, it's talk through it. Any questions, talk to your CPA, your financial advisor, your enroll agent, so on and so forth.
Okay. And we say expert, but I don't know that anybody's an expert on this one yet because it's not even here. So we just slow down on that. All right. For what kind of debt can be forgiven, or for that 10,000 that automatically is going to be forgiven? Do they have to submit documentation within 6 months or something to get the 10,000 up to 10,000 of the EIDL forgiven, or that's just automatic?
No documentation required, automatically forgiven.
Okay. Do we have?
If and again, if you're turned down, Rhoda, if you're turned down, so let's break it up. If you apply and you want the 10,000 up to 10,000, they'll advance it. You then are approved for, let's say, $100,000. You've already gotten 10. So what they'll do is the loan amount now is 100,000, of which 10,000 has been advanced. The remaining 90,000 will be advanced. If you're turned down for the loan, the 10,000 is forgiven.
And as far as the EIDL loan, we're not going to talk about the PPP, so this one will be a little bit later than some of these questions. I believe that these questions are on the talking points of the PPP. So you may want to have folks read through that application page. It tells you what to do. Okay. The other question that comes up frequently is, what if someone is an international company but they have offices in the US. Can the foreign national apply, or how are you working through that?
The specificity there was one particular instance where the person was international personally, didn't have a social security number, but the corporation itself was eligible because they were, a California corporation, and we encouraged them to apply. They fit the guidelines very much so.
Okay,
I'm
so if they have
specifically asking for a little more information.
with an EIN, they should apply.
Rhoda, I have the answer. Are you there?
I think he just said to apply.
I know, but there's more than that. You can't apply if you don't have a security number. We tried putting in the EIN number because we thought of that, and it did not work. It wouldn't accept the EIN number. But she had actually was filling out the form for the travel agency that's been in existence as a U.S. company for 35 years. It does currently, they bought it from the U.S. owner. The owner right now resides in Paris, France, but it's all U.S. employee. It's been around for 35 years as a U.S. company. And when she tried to put in the EIN number, there wasn't a social security number for him as it would not take it.
So
Now,
in
that
these
must
cases,
be under the old application, sir. This question was posed, and the person that posed the question applied with no issue whatsoever under the old system. And there have been no discussions since then about this particular issue. So perhaps the person tries again under the new streamlined approach. And if we could have that be taken care of. We have got no talking points about the inability, as you just stated. And to put Jim's statement in proper context, the question that you posed about the March 30th, 31st was very specific to the advance component that didn't exist prior to Monday morning. The new streamline procedures came Monday morning. I'm asking Jim and Kathleen was the person with the question, to see if the issue that the old system was presenting has been resolved as a result of the new. We've gotten no feedback about any issues based on the question posed. In other words, if you have a legitimate EIN number where so on and so forth, and you're incorporated in the state of California, and you're foreign, national, you don't have a social security number, we've gotten no guidance about any issues that any particular person or entities have had.
Okay, great. That's good news. It's very good news. Is there a way then for someone, for just the EIDL loan, is there a way for them to maximize their loan amount, or they're really just looking at what they filed on previous tax returns and how they're basing the loan?
The answer to this is consistent with my representations last week, which is we are at the SBA automatically approving 6 months worth of working capital. No sums of money needs to be sought. 6 months of working capital is what we're fronting, lending based on eligible businesses that were approved.
And they're just
that covers
calculating
the
that
gamut
based on averages for the industry?
based on the
If they're not submitting any documents, how do they calculate that?
in the weeds question. I have no way of answering that question. All we know is the questions that are on the application is enough for them to approve for 6 months worth of working capital.
Okay, and if they go through that and they realize that's not enough, they can apply for more, same as the last presentation, correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay. All right, what are some other questions that people have? I'm going to open it up on the floor and let people ask. Great. Hi, Milo.
I wanted to find out if a person has more than one business, they have to have a separate application. Does it matter whether or not that second business has the same business address or not?
It does not, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So you should be applying for each EIN. If you have 5 companies, apply under each EIN. Is that right?
That's correct. As long as they're not aggregated to a one tax return scenario, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
For sole proprietorships that do file the Schedule C on their taxes, but do not use an EIN number, do they just use their social security number?
Affirmative.
Thank you.
All right, well, if you do have other questions, Sushil, I'll let you go. I know we had an hour blocked off, so please, people, jump in with your questions while we've got him. And then I think maybe next week we'll do another one on the PPP and can go through that a little bit better. Does that sound like a fair plan, Sushil?
Sounds like a plan. And let me just wrap everything up. It's for working capital loans. Very simply, it's any and all businesses affected by the supply chain. So one man's revenue is another man's accounts payable and vice versa. Next, please. Some examples of eligible industries. Street address, the question that was posed, a PO box cannot be entered onto the application. They need to have a physical street address. $2 million. The changes have been listed on the first bullet point. None required for loan amounts less than 200. Over 200, they are required. 275 for nonprofits, 375 for small business. They are fixed interest rates. All loans are being amortized over a 30-year time frame. Size standards do apply based on revenue and based on size. It's basically a function of your NAICS code.
I also
Next,
read that they may overlook size standards if your company maybe has a substantial impact on the economy. They can also overlook a size standard. Is that rumor or is that true?
That's true. It's a major source of employment, MSE. Very good, Rhoda. Appreciate it. It could be used for payroll costs, including sick leave, accounts payable, fixed debts, material costs, rental mortgage payments, pre-existing debt, and loans which are intended for expansion would come from the district office. This would not be something meant for expansion. This is very specifically to meet the shortage of working capital as a result of a revenue shortfall for specifically accounts payable related debt, product and people. No real estate collateral for under $500,000. General UCC1 filing. A brand new $100 UCC1 filing that the states are requiring. So that's where we're passing the costs on as a result of state filing requirements. Your first payment is due 12 months from now. No payments are due until the economic disruption normalizes. No obligation to take the loan if offered. Applicants that have an existing SBA disaster relief loan can qualify. This is the advanced part. This is brand new. This question is posed at the very end of the application process that we briefly went through, and the person can apply for a $10,000 advance, which is forgiven if they are not approved. If they are approved, it becomes part of an initial advance that you're getting, and the remaining sums of money that you're approved are then sent to you via ACH. It cannot be used for refinancing long-term debt. The proceeds are very specifically for accounts payable, current portion long-term debt due, your people, your rent, your mortgage expenses, things along those lines. Cannot use those sums of money to repay the IRS if you're past due. Cannot use those sums of money to pay off more expensive installment debt. What is the criterion? Credit history and repayment. Traditionally speaking, the capacity to repay and the willingness to repay. Those are two key points.
So are we still looking at a FICO of maybe 650, 620? Are they giving you any more guidelines?
No,
Or are they willing to go a little deeper?
It's been modified. I don't know the numbers. I was told that the credit standards have been lowered in terms of a number.
Okay.
And this is where we started picking up. COVID-19 relief.sba.gov is the name of the website. And the rest of it we've already covered. So very high level.
Okay.
So questions
Great.
that you might have.
It.
And questions that you might have, if you want to aggregate them and shoot them to me, Rhoda, I'll respond to them accordingly.
I appreciate it. We will be in touch then about setting up a time when you get your deck ready for the PPP loan and how they differ. And right now, just encouraging people to apply for both, especially when the PPP loan is ready.
And
Any
if
other
you need
questions
some
on
if you need some advance notice or some guidelines, in the U.S. Chamber website, there is a comparison between PPP and economic injury as we speak. So if you want to share that with your agents as we speak, because I'm not authorized to talk about it yet, but if they want advance notice, they can take a look at that website.
Okay, great. I will find that. Okay. We will be in touch. Thank you. Thank you again. I'm going to post this on YouTube. We'll send it out to people and hopefully help you disseminate information as well. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Rhoda, much appreciated. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
But of course, see you later.